This is our overview of today's presentation. We will talk about it one by one. This is some background information about ourselves. We will give you a brochure to read more. The HOTA Project wants to deliver a great cultural hub for every Gold Coast resident. The vision of this project is to create a cultural center of gravity. All the information you can find in the project document that we provide. Let's move on. The contractors which ask our help will be involved in the HOTA project procurement process and other project delivery issues. To be an excellent project management team, we need to be clear with the contractors that managing the project scope is primarily about defining and controlling what is and is not included in the project. The project scope management processes are shown in here. The key benefit of this process is that it provides the contractors guidance and direction on how scope will be managed throughout the project. The role for the project manager is to make a to-do list of what they will do. Collect requirements and define scope are integrated in the report into a single step called developing scope. The Redstone project team will get a clear definition of business goals, community benefits, and HOTA aspiration in the meetings with stakeholders. This phase will be managed by the Redstone project team and contractor representatives according to a time management plan. When HOTA program governance change the purchase process or other project issues, it will affect the contractor's delivery. The Redstone project team will make the optimized recommendations to the contractors in accordance with the WBS and procurement timeline to ensure project quality is within the required range. This phase requires the contractor to validate the scope, procurement time, and budgets at the beginning of each activity, supported by the Redstone project team. What you see here is the WBS that our team created for the HOTA project. Creating WBS is the process of subdividing project deliverables and project work into smaller, more manageable components. The key benefit of the process is that it provides a framework to show contractors what has to be delivered and what will be the next.
The procurement process has been based around what we have deemed the three project priorities, that being quality, usability, and stakeholder satisfaction. We have selected these as the end user of this project is the broader community, and they are also the ones indirectly funding it through government, and they're also going to be the user. So because of these three things, they are the ones that need to be satisfied the most with this project, and that will be awarded through quality, as in, does it live up to the expectation? Is it an impressive project? The usability, as can the entire community effectively use this space and can it cater to all? And also the stakeholder satisfaction, the stakeholder largely being the general public, as is this a project that was created for them? Does it satisfy them? The scope of this project extends over 15 years and will cost over $300 million. So for this project, the risk is simply too large for one company, person, or entity to bear. And instead, this risk needs to be dispersed. And the best method of dispersing this risk is through an integrated project delivery method. The key components of integrated project delivery method is the fact it has a multi-party contract, which seems the forms of an alliance between the owner, primary designer, and primary builder. However, this can also extend to other key stakeholders and also companies, as that can then form a part of a poly-party agreement. So through this, there's a single sum that is calculated for the entire build, including the contingency. So there is profit at risk for partners to the agreement, as if one company goes over time and over budget and another didn't, if the whole build goes over time and over budget, they lose their bonus essentially. But the costs are guaranteed for each of the partners based on the audits, and all savings are shared if the project is delivered under budget. So in order for this to be successful, it requires the implementation of lean concepts, practices, and tools, and is also dependent on the creation of a collaborative culture, something that's largely lacking in this industry. So in order to be a contractor of this project, you need to accept these principles and also holistically work towards them. As with all methods and projects, there are benefits and also challenges, and those are outlined on the slides. But in order to effectively utilize this process, you need to enact the 5 big ideas, which will be increasing relatedness between companies, team members, and to greater stakeholders, and to collaborate, and to essentially, this will be the driving force of the entire project, as it's what enables all facets of this procurement method. It will also be tightly couple learning with action, optimize the whole, and projects as networks of commitment. This procurement process fits the needs to the project as it addresses the risk and also the requirement of the sharing of this risk. It also addresses the fact that this is a 15-year time frame and costs over $300 million. So it's unfeasible for one sole company to have this as their single client for those 15 years because that's the size and scope that it will require. It also, the longevity of this project also allows for the finding of savings through costs and times and all that sort of thing, which isn't afforded through other more traditional methods of procurement. The gaps in the suitability are largely around the lack of a fixed budget from the onset. So when you're dealing with a government contract, it can reflect poorly on the government and also have a bad perception from the public if it exceeds this initial sum, which in this procurement process is likely to happen. The priorities of this project and what it means for contractors is that it requires a wholehearted commitment to all of the thoughts, processes, and ideals that underpin this, which is largely centered around collaboration and communication. And you need to have the ability to address this need for quality over the need for time dates and potential cost implications, because this is what it requires on this project. You need to be expecting and anticipating redesigns, constant improvements, and all sorts of things like that. So you need to be open-minded and accepting of a different form of construction and a different form of procurement. The greatest risks to this project are a lack of communication and a lack of cooperation. A lack of communication can be circumnavigated to an extent through the contracted requirement of communication via the project charter. However, this isn't enough in this sort of alliancing situation. There needs to be explicit, implicit, informal, and also the formal communication. It needs to extend to every single team member and every single party, and it needs to not exist in these silos of individual companies. It needs to extend to cross-party communication as well. Cooperation is one of those that needs to be a culture created throughout it, and by creating this culture, you will eliminate things like blame and blaming of the other parties, and you will also overcome a perceived lack of incompetence if you interact with them and you can see how you effectively work together. There is also the risk of a lack of understanding of the system, but this again can be minimized through informing of the goals, the project, what this cooperation and this communication will do and how it will enable the project to function and exist better.
Project communication management addresses the information needs of the project and stakeholders from HOTA by enabling effective information exchange. By choosing a functional integrated organizational structure, namely an inner core group and secondary contractors level, ensure that all team members not only have clear lines of communication within their respective hierarchies, but also that they are aware of other levels of knowledge. Lack of communication is one of the risks that can lead to project value. In order to create a cohesive dynamic team, contracted communication arrangements must be defined and outlined in the project charter. It will be through formal methods such as face-to-face meetings, emails, and Microsoft Teams. Value for money is the client's assessment of the services provided by the project delivery because it achieves the intended objectives. The simplest measure is to subtract the total lifetime cost from the total lifetime benefit. It's usually expressed as the ratio between building's function and the lifetime cost of the function. The restaurant team's proposal enabled HOTA to gain high performance influence ability with the low cost in the early stages of the project. Due to the integrated project delivery method, all stakeholders share a risk pool. Use value engineering can maximize functionality at the lowest cost. The restaurant team believes it's most benefit to implement value engineering in the initial stages of the project. It's because project design is more flexible and can easily adapt to changes without much cost.
Our recommendations to any contractors interested in this project is to essentially understand the requirements of HOTA, the requirements of the stakeholders, the requirements of the end users, and also the requirements of yourself. There will be a necessary degree of open-mindedness, adaptation, and also interest in advancement in the greater industry, and as well as having that tolerance and acceptance of these inevitable changes, the constant redesigns, and all that sort of thing. So in order to address these, you need to holistically embrace a collaborative and cooperative culture, and you need to be willing to extend this towards other parties.